In 2013, a woman in Saudi Arabia was literally convicted of magic and sorcery. Yeah, let me give you guys a really quick background here, and then I'm going to talk about a larger issue at stake at the moment. So check it out. In Saudi Arabia, you have something called the religious police, which is pretty much what it sounds like. It monitors religion and making sure people are abiding by religious law, more or less. And the technical term for them is the Committee for the Promotion of Virtue and the Prevention of Vice, which I think is a long ass acronym. It's literally CPVPV. Anyway, one day, 2013, they bust in this chick's house and she's laying there naked. They tell her to put her clothes on, and while she's putting her clothes on, she literally jumps out the window, lands on her neighbor's roof, and then falls through the roof. Well, that's quite the way to get away. Right afterwards, the religious police ran around and then captured her. And then shortly thereafter, she was convicted, and we never heard from her since. And we also don't know what the conviction looked like for her. According to the religious police and the newspapers, they found incense, talismans, and videos on magic in her room. And so that was enough to be able to convict her. On top of that, there's a local paper there called Al Arabiya, which is essentially like our equivalent of the New York Post. Now, in Al Arabiya, they had claimed that she literally flew like a bird. What? This is literally not an analogy. They were being very serious in the situation. And I even checked the paper itself, and they even have a religious scholar that is in charge of the newspaper. So he's kind of like our equivalent of a lawyer. And he had not only confirmed that she had flown, but also made a comparison between her and other magicians, apparently. So he had said, quote, "Some magicians may ride a broom and fly in the air with the help of the jinn, which is supernatural beings." Okay, look, if she was flying, I want whatever type of drugs she's taken. But even though we don't really know what happened to her, we know what happens to people like her, and that's something that I wanted to talk about. But before I get to that, let me talk about capital punishments in Saudi Arabia first. So check this out. During the span of 16 months from January 2018 to April 2019, 253 people have been executed. Something that is very important to keep in mind also with reference towards capital punishments in Saudi Arabia is the fact that Saudi Arabia is third in the world for most executions. The only countries that have more executions than Saudi Arabia is literally China, that has 1 billion people, and Iran, that has 50 million more people. We're going to go pretty deep in this, and so if you guys have an aversion to gore or learning about the nuances about executions, definitely click away right now. But I think this is important to know because they are the US's ally and Europe's ally, and these are the things that they do. So let's dive into it. The two things I really want to talk about are what makes someone eligible to be executed and how Saudi Arabia actually executes its convicts. Now, there are, generally speaking, two different types of crimes. You have lethal and non-lethal. Lethal is literally like killing people. So in 2018, for example, a man stabbed a woman to death, and that is a lethal crime. Or also in 2018, there was a gang that killed people and robbed a jewelry store. That is a lethal crime. Non-lethal crimes is something a little bit more grisly. Now, Amnesty International had claimed non-lethal crimes are adultery. So, for example, a spouse banging another person outside of the marriage. Armed robbery, apostasy, so renouncing Islam, drug-related offenses, rape, witchcraft, and sorcery, all of which are punishable by death. And on top of that, too, you also have homosexuality, and the punishments for that kind of ranges. It ranges everything from prison time to floggings, which is similar to whippings, to being stoned to death. Adultery is also pretty gnarly because you get stoned to death, typically. They also have a lot of different exceptions where they'll add people into the non-violent or non-lethal, I guess you could say, crimes to make them eligible for execution. For example, there's a woman named Isra. I cannot pronounce her last name, but I'm showing her name on the screen right now. She and 5 other people were activists who were protesting Saudi Arabia's treatment of women and LGBTQ people. They were all executed. On top of that, with the executions in Saudi Arabia in 2018, and so this is just the 2018 year, not the 16 months that we had just talked about. In 2018 alone, out of the 148 executions, 59 were for non-violent drug charges. And you can testify against yourself while being interrogated. For example, if you are eating a pot brownie, and which, by the way, they should all eat more, edibles there. Maybe everybody will chill the fuck out, but that's just my opinion. But look, if you're eating a pot brownie there, and then you get interrogated, and they have, say, cables on your nipples or a torch underneath your junk or something, and they ask you, did you eat the pot brownie? Did you eat the pot brownie? Did you eat the pot brownie? And you say, no, 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 even if you didn't do it. And eventually you'll say yes because it's so painful. Boom, there you go. That's it. That is the evidence against you. You are convicted now. Now, well, you're dead. When they execute people, they usually use a firing squad or they behead people. And mostly beheadings, it is not very effective. People don't always die the first shot. It takes multiple shots. On top of that, they save 9 o'clock in the mornings as the time where people are killed. They make it in a public setting, and so usually a public square. They won't announce the crime until usually afterwards. They won't even bother saying it beforehand. So the public is standing there wondering what is going on, and then they'll kill him or her, and then they'll announce what they had done. Imagine with your family walking around getting breakfast in the morning, and then boom, someone gets beheaded. If the crimes are particularly bad, for example, with the lethal crimes, like the person who had stabbed the woman to death, those instances, you're also crucified. And so your headless body will be hung up like Jesus or by the ankles. It will stay out for however egregious your crime was. So in this case, it stayed out in the open, the hot desert sun for 3 days. And then someone had to go over and pull it down. Okay. My only additional comment to this is, why would anybody have enemies when you have friends like that?